Welcome to the Unfiltered Path Podcast, where we explore life's journeys without the constraints of filters. In a world saturated with highlight reels, we dive deep into the true essence of individual experiences, offering our listeners an uncensored glimpse into the triumphs, the struggles, and the transformative moments that define us. Our mission is to provide hope, inspire resilience, and to remind you that every path, no matter how windy or rocky, can lead to growth and enlightenment. Join us as we navigate the uncharted territories of truth and to be moved, to be inspired, and discover that you are not alone on this unfiltered journey of life. Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Trinity Baker. I am a mindset coach. I help take my clients from survival mode to thrival mode. I am joined here with my amazing co-host.
Hi, my name is Danielle. I'm the owner of Aerialist. I am an aerialist. That is a fancy term for performing suspended in the air. I'm also an educator, so I teach others to do it as well. And I'm here with my co-host.
Hello, everybody. My name is Graham Duval. I am the owner of Valüd Productions. We provide video marketing strategies to businesses to help them become more successful. And I am super excited today because we have an awesome guest with us. And I'd like to introduce her.
Hi, good morning. I'm Shanna Cox. I'm the president and CEO at the Lewiston-Auburn Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce, just the LA Metro Chamber. Here in this role, I get to do lots of things. I support a staff of 12. Our real goal in life is to be an engine for economic good and improved, enhanced quality of life in Androscoggin County. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome.
That you do.
Super excited you're here, Shanna.
Thanks, guys. It's really great to be here. I love your intro. I'm up for an unfiltered conversation. It's fantastic.
I think it's so rare that we find unfiltered conversation.
Yeah.
I love that we have created this space for professionals to have the unfiltered conversation, because I think as professionals, we do feel so restricted to have those unfiltered conversations for fear of judgment or, irritating a customer or potential client, right? So I love that we offer this space. So thank you for that. Thank you for that compliment.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's awesome. I get nervous every time I have to read it.
It's wonderful.
It's awesome.
Have you listened to any of the podcasts so far?
I've listened to a couple. I think that I'm behind on what you've recorded. You definitely have more things in the can than I've been able to keep up with.
Yeah, I'm behind. We are very ahead.
You guys are doing a great job. It's always fun to share them when they come out. I think it's wonderful to lift up what you guys are doing, but also just the premise, right? To further normalize that. All of us professionals, regardless of title and role, we're real people. And it's always nice when you get a little bit of a platform that reminds folks of that. I think it's impossible to show up at work and not be your whole self. You can be the best parts of that self to your day. But if your car died, or if your kids are sick, or if you have an elderly parent who needs some extra care, that's there in the back of your mind when you come to work. And spaces that recognize us as whole people, I think, just help all of us be a little better at all parts of our life.
Yes. Yeah, most definitely. It kind of brings a connection, kind of what we were talking about before the podcast of some of the definitions that you talk about with different leadership roles within business and entrepreneurship, of that integrity and authenticity. And, I think it's super cool. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, so I've been in this role leading the chamber for almost 5 years. For 6 years prior to that, I was a female entrepreneur, founder of my own consulting practice. And then I worked, in community and economic development for years prior to that. And so I've been in corporate spaces, I've been in nonprofit spaces, I did executive coaching, and was in a lot of collective cross-sector spaces doing strategy and planning work as a function of the business that I owned. And I just, it feels like I was fairly young at the time, but I was, in my late 20s when I started kind of this leg of my professional career. I'm 43 now, for full transparency. Embrace age too, by the way. Age.
Yeah, that's inspiring.
Yeah, just saying. And so I remember coming to my professional career with some really concrete and what I would call outdated ideas of what leading looked like. Like, first of all, leading had predominantly in my life been male. And so the notion that I could lead as a female was something I kind of had to warm up to and get comfortable with. But I also, I mean, I've spent time in leadership studies. I've been fortunate to be in a leadership fellowship for more than 10 years with a cohort of peers that have been kind of digging deep into system change, what it means to change systems, and what leadership really looks like. And I love every opportunity to turn the notion of what leadership looks like on its head. I have seen leadership from volunteer spaces, from unexpected spaces, from younger folks, and like younger folks that are still in school, not just younger in the kind of workforce and professional environment. And I am firmly believe that leading is an action. It's not a title, it's not a role, it's not somebody that can declare you are a leader. You can't declare yourself a leader. And fundamentally, the notion of leading requires that there is following. Right? If you are leading, that's
nice.
Yeah, I mean, there's like, you can't, otherwise you're alone. You're not leading anything, which is great. That's how leaders start. There's this really kind of obscure, silly YouTube video, which you can Google, called The First Follower. And it really brought me to a place of appreciating that everybody has a role in leadership, and being the first follower is actually a really key role. There's something that you believe in, whether it's a movement or a particular change that you want to see, whether it's in PTA and at your school or at the federal policy level and everywhere in between. It starts with, this is the change I want to see in the world. This is the impact I want to have. You have to state that clearly, and then you have to inspire at least one other person to be like, that's what I want too. That second person is also leading. And that's a really, like, I think that just gets missed so often, that it's a really important part of moving change, of progress, of growth, of development. And so, yeah, in my opinion, leading is an action, and it's not something that's delegated or given to you by others.
Right. That is such a, oh man, I just got a ton of inspiration from that. Just kind of a little selfishly from my business perspective, because a lot of what I do is like, we want to highlight the people that I work with and get that following so that they are that go-to person. And so, like, what are some of these things that I can think about to kind of embrace, like what you talked about, and staying true to that integrity piece, as well as that like authenticity piece, but still breaking some of those misconceptions at the same time, which ultimately will help their business grow. And I just wanted to say that was very inspiring. I appreciate that.
Thanks. It's also well said.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I talked like that. Like, this is why I'm on this podcast. That is the good goal right there. That was so well said. I feel like, yeah, you're right. It's definitely an action. And I feel like my career started from nothing, like twice, you know, where it was like something from an impossible, especially to other people. And I've made it happen in two different ways. And so I feel like that best described that type of like internal leadership, is like how you worded that. That was really nice.
Oh, I have seen you do that, Danielle, right? Like, sometimes I joke, and so I have older children. I have 4 teenage boys, 17 to 19. It's a long story, but I've liked it. And I had twins naturally. I picked up a bonus son along the way. I have 4 teenage boys at home. It's a crazy thing to feed, but it is.
Laundry. Oh my God.
Yeah. How many of you guys have children? I know Danielle and you too. Yeah, Trinity. So my kids are at an age where we talk about like, and not in the when the dinosaurs roamed the earth mom kind of way, but like, you know, what my life has been like. And, you know, I had a conversation with them not too long ago where I was like, you guys, I'm on my 5th life. Like, I don't know if you can fathom that, but the me that you know now is one version of me, but I've had multiple versions of me, and I'm not done. Like, I think that was a really important piece of getting the 319-year-olds through the college application. Like, what am I going to do with my life? I've got to have it all figured out. I was like, no, you don't. You like, not only do you not have to have it all figured out, but I would seriously question your sanity if you think you do. I'm 43 and I don't. I actively am like planning my post 55 life, which is not my retirement life. Like, I look forward to each iteration, and I appreciate how each iteration builds on the wisdom and the experiences and the failures. Can we normalize failure? The failures of all the stages before, like, just keep rebirthing yourself and improving. I think that's fantastic. And I've watched you do that just in the last couple of years, Danielle. Bravo.
Thank you. I know it's pretty, sometimes I'm beside myself because it's when other people are growing. Like, I've been with people for 2 years now. So to see before and afters, that's when you realize that I don't need a title or some grand moment or even a banking account number to identify that, wow, I'm really making a ripple. Like, something's happened because I like believed I could do this. And it really is in my clients. And I've been doing it long enough where I'm seeing it. But you've given quite a few opportunities for me, which is humbling. And then one of my favorite galas I've done was a referral from your space. So Tri-County Mental Health. So just even like the why behind it was incredible. Oh, and I extended out to Graham too. So yeah, it became very fruitful for everybody involved. So thank you for always keeping us top of mind.
I think what you said about the embracing those failures and those changes and iterations is, oh man, I love that we're talking about this right now and how it ties into leading in a space as well. Because, you know, there's those times when you can pinpoint like, okay, this thing happened, or like this situation or this like event, or you know, whatever it is, you know, and the way you can grow from that and find those opportunities to grow and evolve, and, you know, where that fork in the road is like, oh man, okay, if I had done this differently, okay, then I can make sure in the future I make sure to stick with this, and like these are the new evolved processes that I'm doing, or whether it's a new career or whatever it is, and then embracing that, you know, and I just really relate with that.
So I have a question because I love this conversation, and it's coming at perfect time. I think this past week I've finished 3 books on your self-identity and being an entrepreneur and going through those challenges, right? And one of the books that I was reading was talking about failure and what failure means to you. And so I guess my question, because I think we're going to have 4 different answers here, is what is failure? What technically is failure to you? Because we all, I think, have this mindset of looking at these things, like you're talking about Graham and Shanna, of looking at these things as to propel you forward. What can I learn? What process can I change? What mindset can I shift? What does failure mean to you if you had to define a failure or give an example of a failure that you thrived through?
That's a good question.
I think failure, you know, everyone's like, just show up for yourself. That's failure, because you can't just show up when it's all sparkly and you have to put on a nice dress. No, you show up when you're sick or it's an uncomfortable time to have a podcast. I'm always 4 minutes late because I got to bring my kids to school. You know what I'm saying? But I do it. Like, so I believe failure is really the act of showing up for yourself. My art is literally 80% failing. Half of my class, if people don't know how to separate themselves personally, those are the ones that can't come back. Because like you're working on a move for a month before you can do it. And it's painful, it burns, it's literally uncomfortable. So like I celebrate like great fall. Wow, that fall was beautiful. Or I like, oh, that breeze is nice. Like, you know, or oh my God, I can already see you in 3 months. Fortunately, I can. And my clients are, you know, beginning to trust that and see themselves like growing. But yeah, my entire life is failure. So it's just showing up for yourself. That's how I identify it. I don't see the difference. Honestly,
that's a good one.
I love that.
Yeah, I'd say for me, the and like I have different, like, it depends on the day and stuff, but right now I'm going with the first thing that came into my head when you asked this question as my answer. And for me, I would say just like failure is like completely not working. I don't even know how to say it. Like giving up, essentially, like how to say that. Like that is a definition of failure, because everything else, I don't, like you said, Danielle, I don't even consider it failure. You know what I mean? It's just all different opportunities. Like, but if you stop, that is failure.
I think it's interesting because the definition of failure is lack of success. And I could not agree strongly the other way.
Yeah, right. That's interesting.
Is that the Wikipedia?
Yeah, I just looked it up because I'm sitting here, Graham, exactly what you said, which is, I think for me, like the book just asked a question of identify a failure that's happened to you and work through it. And there's like some reflective questions and stuff. And I was sitting here thinking, and I'm like, I really can't pick a moment of failure in my life, because in my eyes, failure is when I didn't take the risk, I didn't take the chance, I didn't take the action, I didn't look at a situation, a challenge as a way to learn. I really can't buy any of that, because I think that even if you, like, say you try something and it doesn't work, let's say you try a business idea and it completely makes you no money and you just go into debt and it goes nowhere. I don't even perceive that as failure, because I think that leads you to something that you're meant to do, like some way or somehow. So failure, totally do not agree with the definition.
That ties right back into what you were saying, Shanna, of if you did get into that debt, like you said, Trinity, that next phase of your life, maybe you're on number 5 or number 6 now,
I mean, I think, so I much like the actual definition. So I would add like a phrase following the technical definition. Failure is any time that you don't achieve the expectations you've set. Right? And so the word success that is in your formal definition, Trinity, that you use, failure is when you don't achieve the success the way you define success when you set your goal. And I think it's really important to name that, because ultimately you are the integral piece to what success was defined as. And so if you didn't learn and that was not part of your success model, then you did fail, right? And so when I think about, I regularly try to normalize failure. Like I will say things like, what's your favorite failure from the last week? And what did we learn from it? Right? Because in my mind, the failure is the opportunity for the growth. I run an organization. We're responsible for work plans, for contracts, for finances, for member expectations. And so there's a lot of metrics of success that we place on ourselves, that others place on us, and that we have to deliver on. And I'm not in a position to be able to pretend that those don't exist, but I don't hold myself or my staff accountable to whether they strictly achieved that or not from a performance standard, right? It's like, what did we aim for? Did we achieve that success? And if we failed to achieve that success, how are we growing from it? And as long as there's something that we can take away from it, I think it's actually really important. One of the things that so a couple of those kids are football players, and so sometimes I use sports analogies, but I think you can actually pick up a lot of yardage on the field from when you fumble, right? Like if you play it right, you can pick up a lot of yardage. And so, whether it's a personal relationship with family, a romantic relationship with a partner, a business relationship with an employee, a peer, or a client, you're going to screw up. And the most important thing is how you handle that, because that is where you are testing the relationship. And then you're able to prove that your test shows that you're trustworthy, that it shows that you are a person of your word, to Graham's point, that you have integrity and that you're being authentic. I get really concerned when leaders can't apologize. Right. That's like a huge red flag for me. I'm the first to own a screw up, right? And so and pretty regularly, because we do a lot, which means when you have a lot of balls in the air, like you're probably kind of messing with one at any given time. So the reality is I'm the first to say, hey, I didn't meet my goal of getting this to you the way that I wanted to. I did want to take the time to do it well, and I put more emphasis on that. That might have been wrong. I welcome your feedback. Here's the finished product. I hope that we can move forward with it. And I just own it from the front end. And I think that people respond really positively to that, and you can build trust through your failure. And I actually think if you aren't messing up and you're not able to test some of those opportunities to prove how you cope with the unexpected, some of the chamber's failures have nothing to do with something that was fully in our control. It's still our job to deal with it and adapt to it. And that's where we can prove what our worth is, not necessarily just the end result.
Right.
One of my biggest things have been venues, like where I can train out of. Like I've had one very consistent, but it's been somewhat limiting in terms of just height. Everything else is amazing out there. But my clients, I have to adjust their schedule, and they're so loyal to me. And so I do find myself having to like apologize, but thanking them for being a part of this growing journey with me as like I, manifest what it is I'm looking to do.
And that they feel invested in your journey. They're actually part of your journey and not a transaction of your business.
Right.
And that's where real relationships are built and where growth happens, right?
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
I used to think when I first started coaching and I was finding spots to put clients in, right? Like I had to do that spot no matter what and turn my life upside down to not miss that client. And so quickly into my business, I realized that was totally unfeasible. I'm an entrepreneur for a reason and I need flexibility.
Yeah.
My clients want to see that. Like you were saying, Danielle, when I became truthful with my clients, hey, my son has additional needs and I need to go to a school meeting that is unexpected. I'm going to need to move your call for 30 minutes or an hour. They want to hear that. They want to see the transparency to know that you're a real person and that they are on this journey with you. And this totally brings us to the topic of the qualities that we see in true leadership. And Shanna, I think that you are the perfect person to have this conversation of what other qualities do you see in a leader? Because like you said in the beginning, it takes one. We have to lead alone for a quick second. And so when we lead alone, I look back to when I led alone for a quick second in both of my businesses, and even in my nursing career, when I was stepping into things that people were like, why are you doing this as a nurse? It takes a lot of guts to do something alone for a hot second. And sometimes it's more than a hot second. What other qualities do you see as significant to be that true leader, to remind our listeners who may be stepping into these moments of leading alone for a hot second, who may be feeling alone, oh my gosh, am I really doing the right thing here? What qualities can you suggest that they tap into and look internally to know that, hey, you are on the right path?
Yeah. Courage, which I think is what you just gave some voice to, right? You've got to be courageous to be uncomfortable, and you've got to be uncomfortable to grow and to be outside of your comfort zone. And so just fundamentally, I think courage is one of them. Integrity, which we've talked a little bit about, authenticity, I think being real. I think a little less kind of popular, top of mind. I think vulnerability is a really key leadership attribute. I think it's so late to authenticity, right? But if you can't be vulnerable in your leadership, if you can't be vulnerable in who you are as a person showing up as a leader, I think it's going to really restrict your growth, right? It's going to cap your potential if you can't truly be vulnerable. And then, there's different leadership types. Then there's a whole field of study and research around it. My particular one is servant leadership. And so for me, I think knowing what you're in service of and using that as your North Star that guides everything, that's really important to me. I think if people are going to follow somebody, if somebody's going to lead to have impact, which is what my personal goal is, right? And that's not the same as wanting to have a legacy or to grow really big or take over the world or anything crazy like that. But for me, it's like, whether anybody knows that it was attributable to me or not, what's the mark that I've left on the world when I am gone? And we're all here for such a really short time in the grander scheme of things, right? And so, it's not about getting a library named after you. That's not the kind of lasting impact that I'm talking about. But I think that's when you can be really clear about what your purpose is and be purpose driven, everything else opens up for you. And maybe not the way that you expected or the way that you planned, but exactly the way that it should. And that I just give complete faith to that core of me, and it pulls me through life. And I think that it really makes when I have had folks that I've interacted with who are in leadership roles by title, right? If you don't know what they stand for and you don't know what they're trying to achieve, how do you sign on to that? How do you follow that? How do you help them achieve that impact? How do you support? Like, how do you follow if you don't know what you're following? And so I just think that is something, I've spent a lot of time in my life working in nonprofits, and there's been a movement in the corporate world and in the for-profit world to have mission statements, to have value statements, some of those things that have always been fundamental in the nonprofit sector have carried over to the for-profit sector, I think fundamentally because knowing what a brand stands for, a business stands for, a person stands for, is really fundamental to where we are in society today about saying that's a purchase I'd make, that's a business I would do business with, that's a person I would trust with my business, with my client, with my money, with my children, with my dog, right? Whatever that business interaction might be, whatever that personal interaction might be, you want to know what that person stands for to be able to know if you want to be in business with them, in relation with them. And I think that sometimes that's least talked about when you're talking about leaderships and leadership qualities. There's, organizational management, all these other kind of skills. Those aren't qualities or characteristics, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because there's a study that authenticity gives off the higher vibration than even love. So when someone's being truthful with themselves, and some of the courage I found in just leading myself to be where I am, and I've recently advanced in my leadership, so I'm in a baby state again in a way. Yeah. And so but the courage part is your first follower is learning how to be your own friend and your own follower. And I think that's just what really was hard. And in that journey, you find that authentic kind of approach and conversation with yourself and how you're interacting with the community. So that really stuck out to me in what you just said. I hope narrowing down and maybe leading with that should be more of a focus. We sometimes get caught up in all of the other things. So it's a nice reminder that it's really in that moments when we first became our first follower, that if we just kind of lead with that, then we're being authentic and we could leave a lasting impression as well.
Graham, I'm curious because fundamental to your work, as a client of yours, right? Mm-hmm. Fundamental to your work is using, that particular medium to be able to help people show their authentic selves and what they're driven by, what their purpose is, exactly. Because that's the thing that people are following or engaging with your clients based on your work product. And so this must be something that you've talked about.
Yeah, I'm loving this conversation because of this exact reason. And creatively, that's where I'm able to come in and help. It's how are we visually, because we're talking about this all right now, and it's verbally, but how can we creatively, visually communicate that as well through the value that they bring as a client or client stories or through story and things like that. And and that's where that connection comes in, because when you, like you said, Danielle, when you do show up with that true authenticity, it emits that energy, and that's the energy that pulls ultimately our goal being to increase sales for these businesses but that energy is what attracts people into their world. And my job being, how do I creatively convey all this in a visual medium?
That's a hard job.
Yeah.
I just have a lot of empathy for that particular job, sir. Yeah.
Takes a lot of creativity. So hats off to you, Graham. But you know what, Danielle and Graham, you really taught me that too, was like, you both are very authentic to me. And I was a business owner when I met you, but I was not my own business owner. It was not created. And now that I've stepped into that space where I've created something, I think like just looking back, your authenticity in what you do in such a creative, unique way gave me the motivation to say, hey, I don't have to be cookie cutter. I can be myself. I can create this business from scratch. It doesn't have to be perfect in the beginning. I can lead by myself. I could develop these followers, right? And so they did quickly catch on with me because of that. I think that I was able to grow so quickly because I came from that spot of being authentic and saying, I could be the first. But like you said, Shanna, the faith that this is where we're meant to be and that what will be, it might not look exactly how we going to.
Almost never.
Almost never. Almost never.
Almost never.
Glimpses of like, okay, I did kind of envision that a little bit. Faith in something, right? I don't care what your faith is in. Faith in something, that there's a higher power of some sort guiding you to where you are meant to be, because that leads your passion. That's where that mission comes in. Like when you stay authentic to your mission, anytime I feel myself getting worried or anxiety about, something, worry, overwhelmed, whatever it is, those questions that we navigate through as entrepreneurs, I'm reminding myself that, hey, my higher power has given me this calling, these skills, and has also given me a path that I don't know what the next step is, but I'm just going to keep on focusing on this mission. And I know that when I focus on my mission of what I want to do, the path will just be created. Like it'll just,
right.
I don't know. I always picture, when I get into that state, I always picture like this cloud on this road where we can't see the rest of the road, but we have faith that it's there. Yeah. We have faith that there's not a cliff coming up, that the road is some sort.
And if there is, we suddenly have a parachute.
Or we build a plane on the way down.
So I equate that that concept. So again, I've got a bunch of teenage boys, and they are very much at the like, how does one figure out their life's calling? What does that pathway look like? And I have a couple of type A kids who are like super goal oriented, and so they feel adrift in the world if they haven't set their next goal that's driving them towards it, which I love, and can be super hazardous if you're not doing that in a certain perspective. And so we were having this conversation the other day, and each of you, one word answer, what's your favorite food currently?
Oh man, I would say steak.
Great. I love steak. Danielle, favorite food? Say it again.
Pho.
Yeah, right? Trinity?
Strawberries.
Okay. When you were an infant and transitioning to solid food, I bet you money none of those were it, right? Like peas, maybe applesauce, mushed bananas. None of you said that's my favorite food. If somebody, and you had the ability to articulate at 1 year old, if somebody said, what's your favorite food? You'd be limited to peas, banana, and applesauce. And so you can't know what's next. You can't know the goal. I can't know. Let me put it in my terms. I can't know what goal I should set for myself at 60, because in the next 17 years, I'm going to have my first taste of something that I didn't even know to put on the list of things I might enjoy, let alone that it might be my new favorite. How could I set a goal that I haven't yet seen or experienced? And so as you're going through your own career, you start, I don't know, in 4th grade with this, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the things that you can conceive to write on that piece of paper are things you would experience by 4th grade. Fireman, policeman, principal, right? Maybe race car driver, basketball player. You certainly weren't saying operations manager. You certainly weren't saying journalist or editor, right? Because there's all of these things that you don't know exist yet to want to learn more about, to achieve, to set that goal. And so this is the conversation that I like. This is your, there's some studies around, there's some followings, the spiritual followings that call that a veil, right? That you were describing, Trinity, this fog that you're moving through. And I think that's right? But in my mind, it's not that you can't see. It's not a you problem, right? It is that the world has not invited you to experience it yet. You haven't encountered that yet, hasn't crossed your path, you haven't bumped into it, you haven't tasted that new food, you haven't traveled to that country to find out what their fundamental sweet treat is, to be like, that's my new favorite thing. You just haven't hit it on your journey. So how
inspired my dating life? I feel cured.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's 100% your dating life. Not your dating life, one's dating life, because I had my own experiences. All right, Steve, I don't know when you are. No, but I mean, sure. I just think you can't. Life is about narrowing down the things that you don't want to do, or that you don't like, or that you won't do that way again, a la failure. And that you can only, through those experiences, closer hone in on the things that you want. And still, myself included, there might be this moment in my life where I experience this new thing, either a personal something that changes me and who I am. And I've had a couple of those moments. My dad had cancer 7 years ago. He's in remission. He's doing great. But the axis by which my world rotated shifted. Fundamentally, it changed who I am. It changed how I think about making the most of life, changed the way I think about relationships and telling people you love them before you can't have that opportunity. It changed who I was in a way that altered what I see before me. And I don't know what experience like that might be 2 years away. That fundamentally changes who I am at my fiber and what I think I can contribute to this world and how I do that. And so I just so when my 19-year-old son was saying to me, like, this is what my career is going to look like, I'm like, that is awesome. What a cool pathway you've got laid out. I can't wait to see what takes you off it, because there will be an experience, and that's good. How do you see those opportunities, not as barriers or disruptions, but as an opportunity?
Exactly.
It's just a real different way of looking at things.
It is. It is a total different way. I think that's one of the most biggest shocks that my clients see, is that when they bring their challenges to their weekly coaching sessions, I am constantly like, okay, let's dissect this. What was this here to teach you? What are the lessons here? How do you move forward? How is it building your best self? And it takes a couple of weeks for them to see that mindset works, because that's what every single detour, challenge, barrier, everything is here for. It's not here to be a pain in the ass, although it is sometimes. Yeah. That's purpose. The purpose is to redirect, to guide, to inspire, to build, to grow. When you can see it, you can then see that living your happiest, truth-fulfilled life is not stopping those things from happening. It's thriving through those things to become your best self. So I love that. I love that. And I also, I love that the chamber provides that space for business owners, entrepreneurs to really create that. It provides the environment, the connection, but you also do a lot of the support for the community. Tell us about one of the events not the event, but the memorial that the chamber's working on, because I think that is just amazing.
Thanks. I really appreciate that opportunity. So in Lewiston, Auburn, October 25th, that was one of those moments, right, that definitely changed who I am. Was not on my bingo card. No one in Maine saw that coming or happening. And what happened that night, what has occurred in our community since, the role of the chamber, some of the activities that we undertook directly, like during those days, directly following, and in the months that followed, changed me, just fundamentally changed me as a person. And, I already talked about that part of the way I see my value to society, to community, to kind of all of the concentric circle, to my family, really is about being in service. And, so the chamber, I think, found itself leading in unexpected ways after October 25th by supporting a whole host of activities. We worked with 4 different donor-advised funds to receive donations and then to manage those funds, account for those funds, and then to distribute those funds according to the wishes of the donors. And then we also created a fund ourselves, which was the one that we got to advise of how those funds got used. And that was the Small Business Relief Fund. The other 4 funds that we managed were specifically supporting survivors, heirs, victims, first responders, and then the larger community as a whole. And so, we've accounted for transparently, right? Again, to my point around what feels important to me, really transparently about how much money came in, how much money went out, how quickly we did that, how those funds were used. I think it's really important to be transparent about that. And as we were, I think we helped co-organize the One Lewiston Vigil, which reached, there was 4,000 people on site that day. There was 1,500 in the church. There was another 3,000 plus people outside viewing it on the screen. And then so many people, either because of geography or because of comfort level, viewed it at home. And so we know that we reach lots and lots of people. And my personal participation in planning the vigil was really about, it was selfish. It was creating an event that would help me process, heal from what way, start healing, because that's a journey, from what we had all gone through collectively. And so, there was elements of that vigil that I was very much in work mode. I do a lot of public events. That's just like a function of my job. And I usually end up at the podium and I'm always, doing my role at events. Very rarely do I get to sit down in a chair and just participate in that way, which is cool when it happens. And that day was one of those days where, I was very much in work mode right up until the actual service started. And then I sat down in a pew and I wept along with everybody else, and really had the time and the words of faith, the words from the deaf community that were interpreted in ASL that helped me feel seen in my own grief and my own sense making of what had happened. And I think it was shortly after that we recognized that it was going to be an important piece for our community as a whole to have some type of permanent memorial. Heather Hunter at the City of Lewiston, her and I had a conversation about that pretty early on. She was able to see that was going to be a really important part for our community, as well as remembrance events. And as you talk to others who have experienced what we experienced, and I've been in touch with peers in chambers or in leadership roles in other communities that have had mass casualty events, you start to realize that it happens too often and that you're not alone in what you're going through. But that the process by which you create a permanent memorial, the process by which you plan and then actually host remembrance events around the anniversary, the process is as important as the outcome. And that it's a really key part to allowing a community to move forward, not on, forward, right? Because I don't think you just get over what we went through. And I don't think that's a realistic expectation. And so, yeah, we're really excited. We announced the One Lewiston Resilience Fund, which we're doing in collaboration with the City of Lewiston. Guiding that work is a steering committee, a group of people that represent many different perspectives, including survivors. So really be thoughtful about how we do what we do. And when the press release came out and the announcement was made about that, I did a bunch of press interviews that day, and each TV personality said, "So what's the timeline? What are you gonna?" And for each of them, my answer was, "We're gonna do this well, and so we're not setting a date. We're gonna learn through the process, and our commitment is to do this thoughtfully and inclusively. And I can't tell you what that looks like yet because we're not all around the table to figure out what that looks like yet.
Right.
And who am I to answer that question? Though I love the question." I think it was really satisfying, and they cut that out of pretty much every interview. But I think that that's real, right? Is,
Yep.
you know, and again, that just goes back to like being in service of the greater good and figuring out what's needed.
As an artist, there was an
Definitely.
instant pressure, not pressure in a bad way. Like, how do I give back? So I already know where I'm going to paint a mural in respect to the moment. But I'll let you know that every artist within Lewiston immediately was like, how do we give back? Like, what can we do to honor them? I started the hot air balloon one, and I have some really creative ideas, and I have a couple of business locations that will help me execute it. So please note that, like, oh my God, it's just, we all wanted to give back. Like, how do we fit in that conversation? I was literally at the Craft Underground with comedians and a burlesque group. Walked in there with the people that like artistically infuse me within the community. We're all there together, experiencing this moment together. And I'll let you know that the community, we have a voice, and there's a lot of people that want to express themselves. And so, like you said, there's no time date. We're all still eager to give. And it'll be a beautiful unrolling of honor as the community expresses themselves. We'll see a lot this summer, and you really did take the lead when that happened. And so for someone that got to just sit back and just be emotional and experience it, thank you.
Yeah, most
Because
definitely.
it was impactful.
Most definitely. Yeah, it was super impactful. And I think we're going to have to definitely circle back around and like have another episode once everything is finished and touch on all that as far as like, you know, what's happened, you know, and like you said, continuing to move forward. So Shanna, appreciate you being on the podcast today. Super awesome conversations. We're so glad that you're here. My name is Graham. Valued Productions is my business. We do video marketing for businesses to help them become more successful. Make sure you follow the Unfiltered Path Podcast on all platforms, wherever they are. And was joined here with my co-host this morning.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Trinity Baker. I am a mindset coach. I help take people from survival mode, from the anxiety, the depression, the overwhelm, the stuck, to thrival mode, living their best life as their true self. And I'm joined here today with my co-host.
Hi, my name is Danielle, and I'm an aerialist in the Lewiston Auburn community in the state of Maine. You can find me on aerialj.com. We can live chat or all major platforms. And today we have our beautiful guest,
Shanna. It's such a pleasure to have been here with you guys. You can find out more about the Lewiston Auburn Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce at lametrochamber.com. And if you want to learn more about any of the stuff happening related to the October 25th tragedy, you'd go to onelewiston.org. Thanks for having me, you guys.
Awesome. Thank you. And till next time on the Unfiltered Path Podcast.